Success created a new problem. Businesses became too large, too many workers, too many warehouses, too many transactions. One person could no longer see everything. For most of history, ownership required presence. If you owned a business, you had to be there because trust depended on proximity. As trade expanded, owners and operations drifted apart. Weeks became months, months became years, and distance created uncertainty. Without information, distance destroys trust, and without trust, large organizations collapse. Bookkeeping offered something remarkable. Owners didn't need to see every transaction. They only needed reliable records. Numbers became substitutes for eyesight. And then humanity attempted something unprecedented. Businesses with hundreds of investors, thousands of employees, operations spanning continents. For centuries, wealth remained personal. Families owned businesses, partnerships owned shops. But now, ownership itself became collective. Investors didn't need to captain ships, or manage warehouses, or supervise sailors. They simply trusted reports. And something extraordinary happened. Businesses became larger than the people who founded them. Owners came and went, managers changed, but the records continued. Kings died, empires collapsed, families disappeared, but corporations endured because memory no longer lived inside people. It lived inside books. As the Industrial Revolution arrived, organizations grew even larger. Factories required enormous capital. Railroads required unimaginable coordination. No individual could manage everything. Information became the nervous system of organizations, and accounting became its language. Without numbers, complex organizations become blind. Railroads, factories, shipping companies, insurance firms, banks, all depended on one thing: reliable records. For thousands of years, trust required proximity. People trusted people they knew. But bookkeeping changed that. Trust became portable. And once trust became portable, something extraordinary became possible. Millions of strangers cooperating, without ever meeting, without sharing families, without sharing villages, only sharing information, and that created an even bigger mystery. For most of history, trust was personal. People trusted family, neighbors, friends. The baker knew the farmer knew the merchant, and the merchant knew his customers. Commerce expanded, cities grew, and suddenly people were dealing with individuals they had never met. And strangers are dangerous, not because they are dishonest, but because they are unknown. Trusting strangers feels unnatural, because trust evolved inside tribes, not inside global economies. Evolution prepared humans for villages, not civilizations. And slowly, society discovered something remarkable. People didn't necessarily need to trust each other. They could trust records. Because books didn't forget, books didn't sleep, books didn't rely on memory, they created continuity. Banks emerged from this idea, not because banks stored money, but because banks stored trust. Depositors trusted records, borrowers trusted records, society trusted records. Because records can be wrong, mistakes happen, fraud exists, and eventually, civilization invented another institution, one designed to verify trust itself. Auditors weren't created to satisfy regulations. They existed to solve a problem. How do owners trust managers? How do lenders trust borrowers? How do strangers trust strangers? Because trust without verification becomes faith, and faith doesn't scale. Verification scales. Reliable books changed lending. Banks no longer needed to know families personally. They could study records, and records made credit possible. Credit financed factories. Factories transformed economies, and suddenly capital itself began moving faster than ever before. Accounting allowed investors to compare opportunities, not through rumors, not through gossip, but through information. And information changes behavior. Good businesses attracted resources. Bad businesses lost resources. Capitalism became an enormous selection machine, and accounting became its language. Millions of people, thousands of companies, billions of transactions, all cooperating without ever meeting, without sharing cultures, without knowing each other's names. Not governments, not armies, not even money itself. Trust. And double-entry bookkeeping gave trust something it had never possessed before: memory. And memory made trust scalable. People often credit steam engines for the Industrial Revolution, or coal, or iron, but machines alone don't create revolutions, because inventions require something else: capital. Ideas are abundant. Money isn't. Every civilization faces the same question: which dreams deserve resources, and which don't? Before accounting, investment relied heavily on reputation, stories, promises, instinct. But instincts don't scale. Double-entry bookkeeping made businesses comparable: profit, debt, assets, returns. Suddenly, capital had information. Capitalism became something extraordinary, a machine for directing resources. Successful businesses attracted more capital. Weak businesses lost it. Factories grew, production exploded, living standards rose, not because resources increased, but because resources became organized. Railroads required unimaginable investment. No king, no merchant, no family could finance them alone. The answer was ownership itself, thousands of strangers pooling resources, together financing projects no individual could afford. Stock exchanges emerged, not as casinos, but as information systems, places where capital searched for opportunity. Because markets don't read minds, they read numbers, and accounting provided those numbers. Perhaps Europe's advantage wasn't superior intelligence or superior resources, but superior information. Many civilizations possessed wealth. Many possessed technology. Many possessed trade. But Europe increasingly possessed something unusual: systems for measuring economic reality. Steam engines transformed energy. Railroads transformed transportation. Factories transformed production, but accounting transformed capital itself. Because capital isn't merely money. Capital is memory. Capital is information. Capital is trust. And accounting connected all three. Perhaps that's what made capitalism different. Not greed, not money, not machines, but visibility. Because once numbers taught businesses to see, capital itself learned where to go. And that created a new mystery. Today, capital flows across borders effortlessly. Investors in Tokyo buy companies in London. Funds in New York invest in India. Banks in Singapore finance projects in Brazil. And somehow, strangers across continents understand each other. People speak different languages, follow different religions, live under different governments. But businesses everywhere speak something surprisingly similar: assets, liabilities, revenue, expenses, profit. These ideas seem obvious today, but they are inventions, concepts humanity gradually developed. Because accounting evolved into something larger than bookkeeping. It became a language understood by banks, investors, governments, auditors, corporations. Without common standards, numbers become meaningless. One company's profits become another company's expenses. Comparison becomes impossible. Trust disappears. Over centuries, society built rules, not perfect rules, but common rules. Because trust requires agreement, and agreement requires standards. Thanks to those standards, capital gained something extraordinary: comparability. Investors could compare strangers across industries, across countries, across cultures. Because modern markets aren't held together by geography. They're held together by information, and information only works when everyone agrees on its meaning. Which is why accounting gave birth to another institution: auditing. Because a language without verification becomes noise. Auditors don't create businesses, just as air traffic controllers don't create airplanes. But both prevent chaos. They create confidence. Capital markets depend on confidence. Confidence depends on information. Information depends on accounting. And accounting depends on trust. Because numbers aren't magic. People can manipulate them, hide reality, distort truth. And when they do, entire systems can shake. The language of capitalism is powerful, but fragile. Because trust compounds slowly and disappears quickly. Not everything important appears on balance sheets. Culture, creativity, leadership, reputation, love, fear, hope. Human reality extends beyond numbers. Double-entry bookkeeping gave civilization memory. But memory isn't reality. It's only a representation of reality. And sometimes representations can deceive. By the 20th century, numbers had conquered commerce. Banks trusted numbers. Investors trusted numbers. Governments trusted numbers. Civilization itself trusted numbers. And perhaps too much. Because numbers reveal many things: cash, assets, profits, debt. But some things remain invisible: trust, culture, leadership, reputation. Markets love certainty. And numbers appear certain, precise, objective, scientific. But appearances can be deceiving. Because accounting isn't simply arithmetic. It contains judgments, assumptions, predictions, estimates. Behind every number, humans make choices. A balance sheet isn't reality. It's a portrait of reality. And portraits depend upon the artist. As markets boomed, investors became optimistic, companies grew, stock prices exploded, and pressure increased, pressure to meet expectations. Enron looked extraordinary, innovative, profitable, admired. One of America's most respected companies. Its numbers inspired confidence. But beneath the surface, another story existed. Debt hidden, losses concealed, reality postponed. The books still balanced, yet truth disappeared. And when reality finally arrived, confidence vanished, billions disappeared, careers ended, retirements evaporated, not because numbers failed, because people failed. Double entry bookkeeping can expose mistakes, but it cannot eliminate incentives, and incentives shape behavior. Many numbers aren't observed, they're estimated. Future cash flows, asset values, goodwill, depreciation. Accounting often measures probabilities, not certainties. Accounting lives between science and art. Too rigid and reality disappears. Too flexible and trust disappears. Civilization constantly searches for balance, which is why accounting never eliminated trust. It merely shifted trust from individuals to systems, from systems to institutions, from institutions back to people. 500 years later, the mission remains unchanged. Not perfection, but reliability. Not certainty, but confidence. Not truth itself, but a useful approximation. Because perhaps the greatest lesson of accounting is humility. Numbers are powerful, but they are not reality. They are humanity's attempt to understand reality. And that leads to one final mystery. Not about numbers, but about civilization itself. At the beginning of this story, the question seemed simple. How did numbers conquer commerce? By now, that question feels much larger. Because before bookkeeping, commerce depended on memory, and memory is fragile. People forget, people die, people disagree, and civilizations built upon memory eventually reach limits. Double-entry bookkeeping changed something profound. It moved memory outside the human mind, from people into records. For the first time, wealth no longer depended on one person's memory. Businesses outlived founders, records outlived families, knowledge survived generations. Because memory created something extraordinary, trust. And trust allowed strangers to cooperate, millions of strangers, across continents, across centuries, without ever meeting. Scale created corporations. Corporations created industries. Industries created abundance. And abundance transformed civilization. Steam engines powered factories. Electricity powered cities. Computers powered information. But another invention powered capitalism itself. Not a machine of steel, a machine of memory. Double-entry bookkeeping became something far greater than accounting. It became the operating system of capital, the language of business, the memory of organizations, the infrastructure of trust. Memory created trust. Trust created scale. Scale created capitalism. And capitalism transformed the world. Because people forget, books remember, people die, records survive, people disagree, numbers create consistency, and civilization depends on consistency. Banks trust borrowers, investors trust managers, customers trust brands, employees trust employers, and beneath every relationship lies information. 500 years later, spreadsheets replaced ledgers, cloud computing replaced paper, artificial intelligence now analyzes transactions, but the underlying idea remains unchanged. Every transaction has two stories, and memory matters. Perhaps Luca Pacioli never imagined stock exchanges, or multinational corporations, or trillion-dollar companies. But by describing the merchant's language, he helped teach money something extraordinary: how to remember. What began as a method for Venetian merchants became the invisible infrastructure beneath modern civilization, quiet, unnoticed, taken for granted, yet everywhere. Because perhaps capitalism wasn't built by kings, or armies, or even money. Perhaps it was built by something much quieter, a set of numbers that taught civilization how to remember. Subscribe to LBC. Thank you for watching.